right, everybody. So today we got something really important to talk about, but before we get to that, there's a few small things I wanted to go over. First up is the back piece of the driver's side door handle. It is on the way. It should be here in no more than 3-4 days max. So next video, we will definitely be getting that put on, and then the carbon door handles will finally be finished. Now, the last thing I want to talk about real quick is the car itself. So I noticed it after I did all those donuts in the last video, that every time I cold start the car, it's been making a strange sound coming from up in here. And I think I know what it is. I'm pretty sure just the engine leash is too tight. So it's not supposed to be this tight. It's supposed to have a little bit of slack on it. And I think where the engine leash is basically holding the engine under full throttle, like in the full throttle position at all times. So like basically what I'm trying to say is the engine leash should not really have any strain on it when you're under full throttle, but when it's not under full throttle, it should have a little bit of slack. And right now there's no slack. So if we loosen this up, it should fix everything. Let's do that real quick. I don't know if you guys will really be able to see this, but pretty much we just got to loosen this up like so. It's kind of a pain, but it's not too hard. We finally got the engine leash loosened up a bit. It was a lot harder than it should have been. Let's go ahead and start the car and see if the noise is gone. Oh yeah, baby, I'm pretty sure that fixed it. I'm gonna go ahead and throw a clip up on screen of what it sounded like before so you guys can get an idea. And if you ever hear that, just know you need to loosen your engine leash. Okay, I lied. I still kind of hear it actually. I don't know if you guys can hear this, but there's like this clicking sound, man. It seems to completely disappear once the car is warmed up, but man, I have no idea what that sound is. It literally sounds like it's coming from exactly where the belt is at. There's just this strange clicking sound. And me and my friends have inspected everything, man, looked at everything, and we cannot find any problems. So if any of you guys have any ideas, let me know down in the comments below. So hopefully the wind noise isn't going to be too bad right now, but the time has finally come to talk about this, everybody. I'm sure all of you know exactly what is happening by the title and the thumbnail of today's video, but it's time to finally talk about, should we turbocharge, supercharge, or sell the Genesis Coupe, or engine swap, I guess. So if you guys saw last video, you probably saw towards the beginning of the video, I talked about how Boost was coming by the end of this year for sure. If everything goes as planned, within the next 4 months, Boost will be coming, and it seems like not all of you guys necessarily knew what I meant. So I didn't necessarily mean boosting the Genesis Coupe. I mean, Boost coming in the next 4 months, I mean, it could mean a new car that comes with a turbo on its stock or something like that. But I mean, none of this is going to happen without talking about it first. So let's go ahead and dive into this. So if you guys have been paying attention to the polls, it's no secret that I've been thinking about getting a new car recently or boosting this car. But realistically, I would prefer to get a new car than boost this car. But no decisions are final before running it by you guys, because of course, none of this would be possible without you guys. So today we're pretty much just going to go over everything from A to Z on boosting this car, looking at new cars, engine swapping this car, and pretty much come to the conclusion of what is the best option to do next. We're gonna go ahead and start this one off with turbocharging, and why, in my opinion, turbocharging this car is not the best move. So if you guys have been around the channel for a while, you've probably heard me talk about that I'm for sure going to turbocharge this car. Well, as of recently, I've been looking into it and looking into how much it's going to cost and just looking into everything that goes into turbocharging one of these cars. And from everything I'm seeing, it's just not worth it in my opinion. And the reason for that is because of this. You start looking at how much turbocharging this car will actually cost, and once you get that number, you start to rethink if it's actually worth it to turbocharge this car or not. So the kit, Remnant Performance turbo kits are probably what I would go with. If I'm not mistaken, those go for about $4 grand. Now after you're turboed, you have to get a retune, and once you're boosted, retunes cost about $1,000. So right there, we're already at $5 grand, and that's not even including the install price. Well, obviously if I installed it myself, it would, but I mean, more than likely for something that big, I would probably take it to professional just so I don't risk messing anything up. So then you factor in the price of install, and that probably bumps it up to another $2,000 at the bare minimum. So you're already at $7,000 for a turbo kit. But then the real issues begin once the car is turboed. So basically this car, the 3.8s in particular, they're just not really made for boost from everything I've seen. Pretty much unless you're willing to spend about $7,500 building the engine, you're gonna blow it up within the first year. And to me, that does not sound like a very fun time. And say you didn't build the engine and you just wanted to run the turbo kit with the tune and everything, I mean, max, you're gonna be able to run the kit at like 6 PSI. And I mean, is it really worth spending $7,000 when you can't even use the turbo to half of its potential? In my eyes, it's not. So yeah, all in for a turbo kit, you'd be looking at a little over $14,000. And I mean, yeah, that would be sick having a turbo 3.8 Genesis Coupe, but I mean, realistically, I couldn't even sell the car for much more than that, if more than that at all. So would it be worth putting $14,000 into a car that I can't get $14,000 out of? I mean, in my opinion, it's not. Now, I've had quite a few you guys tell me, well, not quite a few, but a handful of you guys tell me that, you know, you don't have to build the engine or anything to run a turbo kit. But I mean, from everything I've heard, man, I've been talking to DMZ Rated or Dream Machines, whatever you want to call them, the place that tuned my car, and he said that he's never seen a turbo 3.8 last over a year without the engine basically being fully built. So yeah, man, whenever you start to factor all that in and look at how much it really costs to turbo one of these cars, I mean, in my opinion, I just don't think it's worth it to turbo this car. But you still have the option of supercharging or engine swapping. So let's go ahead and jump into what it's like to supercharge one of these cars. Supercharging, good old supercharging. Now, if I were to boost this car, that would be the preferable route, in my eyes at least, just for the instant torque and the more safe power. But I mean, still, that does not mean it is the best option, in my opinion at least, and here's why. So, I know what you're thinking, turbocharging, it's ridiculously expensive, so surely supercharging has to be a little bit cheaper, but unfortunately, it is not. It costs about the same price. So basically, I've been talking to DMZ Rated or Dream Machines about boosting this car because I really wanted to get it figured out, so I asked him about supercharging, and here's what he had to say. The DTOS supercharger kit for this car, the only supercharger kit that exists for this car, cost about $6K for the kit alone, plus another $850 to $1,000 for the tune, and then plus building the 3.8 engine. And all in all, that would be about $15,000, so even more expensive than turbocharging this car. Now, like I said, if I were to boost this car, supercharging would definitely be the route I would take for the instant power, the instant torque, and everything like that. But when you start to look at exactly how much it costs, the same as the turbo kit, about $15,000 to supercharge this car, I just start to wonder if that is really worth it. And in my eyes, it's just not worth it for the simple fact, like I said before, I can't even sell the car for that much money. Now, yes, it would be so sick to have one of the only supercharged Genesis Coupe 3.8s, and I'm sure it would be a super fast car. But I mean, when I look at spending, so the car, I spent about $17,000 on the car in 2017, got it with about 27,000 miles. We're at about 67,000 miles now. I've put like 40,000 miles on the car. So when you look at the cost that I spent on the car itself, plus supercharging or turbocharging the car, man, that is over $30,000. And is this car really worth that much money? I mean, when it was brand new MSRP, it went for over $30,000, but in my eyes, this is a entry-level sports car, and I don't think it's worth it to spend over $30K on one of these things. Now, the next option that we have to do to the Genesis Coupe 3.8 is an engine swap. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So, engine swapping. Now, if you're looking to spend over $10,000 on this car in performance parts, that, in my opinion, would be the best route for the simple fact that, yes, you would be still no boost, but with that money spent, you would be at a little bit less wheel horsepower than you would be at boosted. And boosting this car is the end-all be-all. You can't really do anything after that, but engine swapping would be basically starting over on a new platform on this car with about the same horsepower that you would have with an endgame turbo or boosted build on this car. I hope that made sense. But in my opinion, it's still not the best option, and here's why. So, engine swapping. Now, like I said, in my opinion, if you're gonna spend a lot of money on this car performance-wise, this, in my opinion, I feel like I've said opinion like 20 times now, but this is the best bet, I think, for the simple fact that it basically puts you at the same wheel horsepower with the NA motor that you would be at fully built, fully boosted with this thing right here. But the problems with engine swapping come whenever you start looking at the price, basically. So it's about $7,000-ish for a crate kit and everything for this car. So actually, let me backtrack a little bit. So like I said, I've been talking to DMZ Rated a lot recently, and he basically has told me that engine swapping seems to be the best bet for this car if you want the most power out of it with the least money spent in a way, but still it is no cheap option. So a crate kit all in and everything is about $10,000-ish installed, but that is just the engine alone. That is not including the transmission or anything else like that, so that is also another price that you have to factor in. So it's not only $10,000 just to engine swap this car, where mine's an automatic, and more than likely, even if you have the manual, you will have to get a new transmission that will be compatible with the engine. Now, I don't know too much about engine swapping and whatnot, so maybe I'm completely wrong about this and you don't have to get a new transmission, but I'm pretty sure from everything I've heard, not only do you have to get a new engine, you also have to swap swap the transmission. And once again, all in, it cost over $10,000. And when you start looking at that price, I just don't think it is worth it spending $10,000 on this car when, like I said, I can't get much more than $10,000 out of the car for selling it. And also, I forgot to mention that the engine swaps that are most common on these cars are just truck LS engines. Yeah, you could put an LS3 from a Corvette or something like that and it should fit, but I mean, that will literally double the price, man. That's a Corvette engine compared to an LS out of a truck, which is still pretty fast. But I mean, if I were to engine swap it, I would preferably not want a truck engine in here and want a Corvette engine or something like that, but that would double the price. And here comes the rain. And that is why I don't really want to go the engine swap route. It comes back to the reason that I've had for all the other ones basically, and it just is money spent versus what you get. Man, I don't know if it's worth it spending that much on this car, but if you guys think it is, I mean, I'm sure we could make some things happen and we could move towards one of those routes. But we have still yet to talk about the last route that we could take, which in my opinion is the best route, and that is getting a new car, replacing the Genesis Coupe with a new car basically. So if you guys have been paying attention to the polls on the channel for a while now, you probably saw this option coming, and in my opinion, like I said, this is the best option, and that is getting a new car. And the reason I think that is the best option is because if I save up 10 plus grand to put into this car, to turbo it, boost it, engine swap it, whatever you want to say, if I save up that much money and spend it on this car is then at its end. Like, there's nothing else I can do to the car, and it's basically fully built then. Now, say I were to save up that amount of money and then trade the Genesis in towards a new car, I mean, I've been looking around and used Q60 Red Sports, which, okay, let's talk about this real quick, because in the polls, you guys seem to think I'm talking about brand new cars, and I would love to get a brand new car, but unfortunately, I can't afford a brand new car. And the options that we've been looking at are the new Supras, the Q60 Red Sports, and a few other things, but those are the main two options that I would really like to upgrade this car to. Now, the Q60 Red Sports, you can find one of those used for like 35 grand, and I mean 400 horsepower, twin turbo V6 for 35 grand, in my opinion, is not a bad idea. Now, for the Supra, I've yet to see any of those sell for below 45 grand. I mean, really even below 47 grand. It seems the average is like 50, and that's $15,000 more than the Red Sport. And it seemed like some of you guys were most of you guys probably were a little bit more interested in the Supra, but I mean, when you look at it like this, say you get a Red Sport and then you spend 5 grand on it, you could make it faster than the stock Supra. So I mean, yeah, you could spend the extra 15 grand on the Supra and get a faster stock car, but if you spend a little bit of that money putting it into the Q60, it'll literally walk the Supra. So I mean, for instance, the Q60 Red Sports, I've been looking at the all-wheel drive ones. I've heard some strange things about the rear-wheel drive variants with not having an LSD and whatnot, so the all-wheel drive would probably be the version I would go with. But basically, there's an AMS package for those cars that costs like 3 grand that brings you to 430 wheel horsepower. I mean, 3 grand spent on this car has got me maybe plus 15, 20 wheel horsepower, and 3 grand spent on there will bring you, so stock Q60 Red Sports dyno at like 345 wheel horsepower, and with, yeah, 345, and then with that kit, it literally brings it to 430 wheel, man. I mean, that thing would be an absolute beast. I've seen some videos on YouTube. This man has a full built one, and he's over here running to 3.3 seconds 0 to 60, and in my opinion, that would not be a bad choice right there, dude. But like I said, none of this is going to happen without you guys, because none of this would be possible without you guys. But I mean, I don't know, man. In my opinion, that is by far the best bet, is trading in the Genesis towards a new car. Or I mean, if you guys really wanted me to keep the Genesis, because realistically, I would like to keep the Genesis, but I just can't afford to have 2 sports cars, man. Insurance would double and everything. But I mean, I don't know, dude. Basically, it's just going to come down to you guys and what you guys are really down to see. But like I said, the Q60 Red Sport, in my opinion, is the best option. But I don't know, man. Another thing I wanted to mention real quick, I forgot to mention this when I was talking about boosting the car, talking about the turbo kit and the supercharger kit and whatnot. But basically, yeah, I could spend all that money and I could build the engine and everything, but I could still risk this car blowing up. And then if I don't rebuild the engine again or get a new motor, everything I've done to this car would basically be for nothing. And that just really hurts to think about. And thinking about that, it just makes me want to get a new car instead of risking blowing this one up, basically. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down below. Now, that's not to say if I got a new car, things with the Genesis would just instantly come to a stop. I mean, I have a lot more planned with this car. I have a lot more I want to do with this car and bring to you guys before I get rid of it or trade it out or whatever happens. But I don't know, man. I just really think that trading this car in would be the best of the 3 options. I don't know, it's just something I've been thinking a lot about recently, and when I look at how much it costs to turbo or boost one of these cars or engine swap it, I just really start to wonder if it's worth it spending that much money on this car, or just starting over on a newer platform that basically would be faster than this thing would be boosted, almost faster than this thing would be boosted stock, and just make it an absolute beast all over again. Now, obviously nothing is set in stone, but I mean, me personally, I definitely think that getting a new car / trading the Genesis in is the best bet, just because I don't want to risk hurting this car, man. I love this car so much. It's a great entry-level sports car, but I mean, like I said, looking at spending 10 grand on it, or looking at spending 10 grand plus trading this in towards a new car, that second option to me sounds way better. But yeah, everybody, that is really going to wrap it up for this one. I just had to go ahead and talk about this because, I mean, the more I think about it, the more I think that getting a new car is the best option. And instead of putting this off and talking about it way later on and maybe making a sudden change out of nowhere, we might as well go ahead and talk about it, get your guys' opinion on everything, and figure out what is the best option to do next. I still have a new mod coming in. It's still yet to ship. Hopefully it'll be here within the next 2 weeks. I mean, I don't even know at this point. I haven't gotten any updates on it or anything, but I mean, it's paid for and ordered, so hopefully it'll be here soon. But yeah, like I said, everybody, that is really going to wrap it up for this one. If you guys have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. If you guys like this video, do not forget to drop a like and subscribe. Peace out. I'll see you guys in the next one.